Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the webinar on preventing organizational collapse due to the U.S. government's funding cuts. My name is Mary Pat Selvaggio, and I'm your moderator today, and thank you for taking the time to attend. We have a lineup of really good speakers. Peter Capozza from Khulisa Management Services, Fred Dewey from Alive 9 to 5, Joe Lowther from J.E. Austin Associates, and Josiah Mutambara, sorry, Josiah Mutambaranwa from Sustainability Solutions, and last but not least, Ina Vandervat from Universal One. This workshop or this webinar will be approximately 30 minutes long. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will try to answer them at the end of the presentation. We're recording this webinar and the recording will be available afterwards. So now I'd like to turn it over to Peter Capozza, who will introduce the Rapid Response Rescue Plan concept.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And hello. I am in South Africa right now. I spend half of my time here and the other half in Washington. And about 10 weeks ago, I was in Washington prior to the new administration taking over. And I went there because I expected some changes to foreign aid. And lo and behold, I found them. What I did find, however, was much greater than I had anticipated by a factor of 10. The stop work orders were the first thing that hit us. There was a lot of media on what was happening with USAID. I heard it was a criminal organization. I couldn't believe it. We then went into the thousands of contracts that were canceled by USAID after the stop work order. And over the preceding weeks, we realized that foreign aid was never going to be the way it was in the past, at least from the US government's perspective. The result of that were numerous things. NGOs, grantees, businesses, both small and large, countries that were receiving a variety of assistance from antiretrovirals to technical assistance, immediately realized that things were going south. The problem, of course, was that this happened rapidly, without warning to anyone, and we were all caught off guard. The stop work order, the first thing we had to do was to stop all of our projects, those of us that had projects with USAID and Department of State. And we then realized that that was going to turn into some of those contracts being canceled, and of course, many of them were. Needless to say, the grantees, the NGOs, the businesses all went into crisis. They first didn't realize what was happening because it was unimaginable. And then second, they had to then recognize the financial implications, the labor implications, the technical implications of what was happening. So as a response to that, Khulisa immediately brought together a number of partners and started to talk about what was happening. Many of the partners were undergoing the same consequences of the stop work order and the canceled contracts. So we were well aware of what was happening in our environment, in development, and in the countries that we worked in. We came together as a group with a holistic approach to try to assist organizations, grantees, NGOs, small businesses, etc., with a rescue plan that we entitled the Rapid Response Rescue Plan. With bringing together expertise from a variety of sectors, we were able to look at turnaround experts, financial assessments, strategy, back office support, and counseling for those organizations that were being affected and that may need assistance. Without this intervention, of course, in the next 30 to 60 days or more, many of these organizations are not going to survive. So, of course, this matters because these are the organizations that underlie development. They're the grantees, they're the NGOs that deliver, they're implementing partners, they're the small businesses and the businesses that actually implemented these projects. And the thing about USAID is those projects were not standalone only. Many of them were buy-ins and they were contributions to other projects that other donors and other organizations were working on, foundations, etc. So the 30 billion or more that is allocated every year from the US government all of a sudden was disappearing in a rapid fashion with organizations caught off guard. So the obvious implications of this are not only do we have the organizations that are in crisis, but we have the countries that were receiving the aid also in crisis. What I'd like to talk to now is the structured approach that we've taken, the 5 phases that we are looking at. And in those 5 phases, we start off by having a initial diagnostic phase. And in the initial diagnostic phase, we basically will be focusing on an analysis of what's happening to the organizations. That's kind of a critical phase. It's ongoing right now. In fact, if you look at where we're at in 10 weeks into the activity and the issues, many of us have already taken a number of steps at a labor level and a financial level to help our organization. But then we move from that phase that we would work on to the next phase, which is to stabilize the operation. And in the stabilizing the operation, we, of course, will be looking at a variety of objectives in the liquidity and the financial risks of the organization, the containment measures that are necessary, the short-term funding to prevent collapse. Some of this is with shareholders or the bankers of the organization. And then how do we retain the critical personnel and the partners? And last but not least, a very important area, which is the counseling and the leadership coaching, because the organizations are suffering these consequences, which are quite significant. So the next phase is the business recovery analysis. And that's where we're doing more scenario planning and financial forecasting. This is kind of the areas that are typical for recovery, where we're looking at financial scenarios, identifying other revenue opportunities for the organization, developing the best and the worst case strategies to help the organizations overcome the crisis, and then identifying the high priority research allocation needs. All of this has got to be done in a cost-effective restructuring program. The next phase is basically management restructuring. And let's remember, these organizations did not have problems until they lost their funding. So these are not organizations that are not performing because they have management issues. They are not performing because they've lost either some or all of their programs and their financing that underwrite their organization. So with this, obviously, we have to have a rapid response to management. We have to develop the contingency plans, for the funding disruptions that are occurring, and we have to align the staff and the available funding to the outputs that are needed in the organization. And the last phase is obviously management and resilience, and that is the change management and resilience. Here, we've got to ensure that the organizations are able to make it now to the final and the end line, which is to keep the organization sustainable. We have to come up with strategies for funding the organizations, from 1 month to several months to a year, in order for them to readapt and to reorganize and to focus on new funding opportunities. And we obviously have to encourage innovation and agility. And that is critical when we're talking about a turnaround and where we need to go in the future. So with that, I'm going to open up and talk a little bit about Khulisa and then pass it back to Mary Pat, who will introduce the other partners in our group. And every partner brings a unique experience over the past decade or two. They bring unique skills to what we're doing in order to give a holistic approach to the Rapid Response Rescue Plan. So Khulisa, well, I'm the president of Khulisa. I'm a founder. I started the organization 32 years ago. We have been around for that long. We have major operations in Southern Africa, in South Africa, and in Washington. We have been going, I personally have been going for 40 years in business, and I've had 17 companies that I've opened, run, and sold off, many of them in the past in management buyouts or to third parties. In that process of being involved in business for 40 years, I have come across having a crisis on several occasions. Some of them were small, some of them were big. The biggest one was most recently, where we are involved as a management partner in a food manufacturing operation in Southern Africa. And when COVID hit a few years ago, our operation was supplying customers who were in the airline industry, the airlines, the restaurant, and the hotel industry. So immediately when COVID hit, we lost 95% of our business or more. And we were impacted the same way we're impacted right now by the issues that are hitting the development industry, where there's no financing, there's no money available, there's no business. That's where we used to go and get our business. So what we did immediately, because we had a few experiences before that, Khulisa, where we had to deal with turnaround issues for other companies that we were involved in and helping. We immediately looked at our labor and our technical divisions to determine what we needed to carry on doing immediately, and then to halt and suspend operations that didn't need those technical skills, and to position them so that we were able to then turn them on again as soon as we needed them. So we couldn't die. We had to be ready to go. And with COVID, we had no idea how long that piece of string was. We had to look at our market and our sales. We had to look at our customers, because we were providing people who were shut down, at least in Southern Africa, and they weren't buying product. And then we had customers like McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, Pizza Hut, KFC, who came to us and said, "We're sorry, we can't pay our bills because we're closed down likewise and nobody has any money. So we all have to, sit and wait." But on the other side, our bankers weren't going to be patient. They saw this as a highly dangerous situation where we had overdraft, where we had facilities, and we needed to do something about it. So lo and behold, we found a solution. We were rapidly responding to the situation. We cut back. We made ourselves agile. We became innovative. We came up with new products that were able to service a different market, in that case, a retail market of the supermarkets, et cetera, that we weren't providing, and they were still open. So we immediately found new business. We used our talent. We educated our people in areas that they weren't ready for, that had to be trained. So we used the time that we were down to do some training, and we found funding through our shareholders and our bankers, who gave us an allowance to allow us to live into the future, and some grants from third parties who were able to support us. But we made it, and we came out of it, and we're now the third largest in Southern Africa, in South and Southern Africa, as a manufacturing frozen food provider. So we've had experience. We also did the turnaround strategy for the South African Railways many years before Khulisa, when they ran into trouble, and we gave them a new pricing strategy in order to turn around the South African Railways with partners of ours, PricewaterhouseCoopers and others. And we had other such experiences. So we've had a lot of experience. We've done it. We know what it's like. And we believe that we as Khulisa can help our team put together solutions for grantees, for small businesses, for NGOs that need support to recover. But that support is not one day, it's not a week, it's months. And sometimes it could be a year or longer for them to get reorganized. So with that, I'll pass it back to Mary Pat, and thank you all for listening to the first few bits of this presentation.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to pass the presentation over to Fred Dewey from Alive 9 to 5.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's an honor to be part of this coalition that Peter and his team at Khulisa has formed to save our critical foreign aid organizations. My name is Fred Dewey. My firm is Alive 9 to 5, and I'm a turnaround specialist and guru. I spent the first 20 years of my career in leadership positions in Silicon Valley, where I learned how to move fast in response to rapid changes in the industry. And about 15 years ago, I found myself accidentally involved in what ended up being my first turnaround. I'd made a large investment in a packaging and fulfillment company, and one day the company lost 60% of its revenue overnight when its largest customer moved their operations to Mexico. In order to save my investment, I bought the company out of bankruptcy and turned it around, cutting the right costs and rapidly bringing in new sources of revenue. In that process, I discovered that I liked the energy and difference-making of turnarounds, and I also discovered that I was good at it. So that was the start of the turnaround path that I've found myself on the past 15 years. Since that time, I've done an additional 7 turnarounds, including a social services nonprofit that runs homeless shelters, halfway houses, and schools here in Rochester, New York. It also had lost a lot of its funding, so we had to find new funding in order to ensure its survival. Thoughtful and strategic cost cutting, along with finding new sources of income, are 2 of the keys to successful turnarounds. So along with Peter and his team at Khulisa Management Services, we are bringing deep turnaround experience to the existential threat that NGOs are now facing. And what excites me about the Khulisa coalition that we formed is that we're also addressing the full spectrum of needs that NGOs have at this time. Not only are we looking at cash flow, restructuring, decision-making, and new revenue generation, but also important topics like legal compliance, minimizing risk, and cost reduction, taking advantage of outsourcing opportunities. So our partners in this effort, J.E. Austin and Sustainability, who you'll hear from in a moment, are an excellent boost to our turnaround offering. The other important thing is the mental health needs of the leaders of our threatened NGOs have to be addressed. One of the keys to my turnaround success has been my deep application of emotional intelligence and mindfulness in my turnarounds. When it comes right down to it, businesses are made of people, and people are usually in a very negative emotional state when their survival is threatened. So it's critical that we get leaders and their employees out of the shock, anxiety, depression, inaction that most of them are currently experiencing. So it's great to have Universal One on board to make the mental health part of this coalition work. The Khulisa Rapid Rescue Team is taking a holistic approach and covering all the bases so that we can successfully complete the turnaround of each company we work with, no matter how big their challenges and problems are. And it's my distinct privilege to be part of this team. Back to you, Mary Pat.
Thank you, Fred. Now we're going to hear from, from Josiah Mutambara from Sustainability Solutions.
Okay, thank you, Mary Pat. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josiah Mutambara, and I'm working for an organization called Sustainability Solutions, and we are based in Johannesburg. As an organization, we have got more than 25 years of experience in providing financial management and risk management solutions to NGOs, most of them funded by the US government through USAID and CDC. But we've also provided assistance to organizations funded by CEDA, the EU, Bill and Gates Melinda Foundation, as well as Global Fund. Now, in response to what Peter said earlier on, one of the phases of the plan is to build long-term resilience. And as part of that phase, we strongly believe that risk management is key in organizations that want to build long-term resilience. What is risk management, or what is a risk? A risk is anything that hinders organizations from achieving their objectives or goals. And management of that risk, the process of identifying, managing, and putting in place controls is the full risk management process. Now, for NGOs, and because of limited financial resources, risk management is not a luxury. It's actually vital. And it's sometimes effective risk management processes, the difference between not having them and having them is actually the difference between an organization, collapsing or surviving after or during a turmoil. What happened through the US government, the decision to restrict funding in itself is a risk to organizations, and organizations need to be proactive, and everyone was affected. Some organizations had mechanisms in place to proactively manage the possibility of such a risk, and unfortunately others did not have. Now, that control that is in place is the cushion. It minimizes the impact of any risk that manifests. And it is part of what we do to make sure that organizations do survive such turmoils through having proactive mechanisms in place, as well as systems in place to make sure that they do survive after a change. As an organization, we help our clients in making sure that they have got some good risk management processes and formal in place, which include having a fully documented risk management methodology, which we do assist with. We also make sure that organizations have got a live risk register or risk report. Organizations should also have some good internal controls for each of the identified risks. And we also offer trainings to board members, organization management, as well as staff, to make sure that the process is entrenched throughout the organization. As an organization, we have got some highly qualified staff members. We have got a team of certified public accountants, chartered accountants, certified internal auditors, as well as some fraud management experts. And with their collective skills, we have helped many organizations to have some good financial mechanisms in place, as well as being prepared to manage any risk that might affect the organization. The experience that the team members have is across industries, which again, helps, because some of the risks that manifest are due to external factors. And if you have got experience in other sectors like the public sector, the corporate sector, financial services, it will also help in making sure that organizations are helped in managing these risks. Recently, in the past 4 to 5 years, we have conducted at least 60 pre-award assessments to organizations in the continent, Africa, as well as in Asia. Now, this helped in that we have got a thorough understanding of the risks within the different environments in which the organizations operate. And this gives us an edge in terms of providing solutions that are targeted at the common risks that do affect organizations like NGOs. We are committed to providing NGOs with the tools and expertise that they need to succeed in their vital work. Thank you so much. And I'll hand you over back to Mary Pat.
Thank you, Josiah. Next, we invite Joe Lowther to talk about his company and his experience with J. Austin Associates.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm in Budapest, Hungary, working on some partnerships. But normally I'm in our office in Arlington, Virginia, in the United States. Our company, J. Austin Associates, is a consulting firm. We've got a team in 23 countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. Many of them specialize in organizational capacity development. We have a number of tools that we deploy to do diagnostics of organizational capacity, then working always as facilitators of their management teams to develop improvement plans, and then helping them execute the improvement plans using our tools, and then of course helping them measure their improvements. I should mention that in addition, I personally am on the board of the Small Business Association for International Companies, SBAIC, and in that capacity, I've been helping a lot of our smaller members who really are struggling with the cutoff in USAID funding. I've been helping them with financial issues, of course, legal issues. I'm also an attorney, and operational issues, and how do they survive and then hopefully recover, which many of them I think will, although some sadly may not be able to survive this financial shock from USAID cutting off funding. I join my colleagues here in feeling very strongly about the need to help these implementing partners throughout the emerging markets that we work in. We've been giving some advice to some of our most important partners, and then working together. For example, I'm out here with the Eastern European firms to develop joint ways to continue to do business. Our firm also has been hit really hard as a small business, with about 80% of our funding being from USAID, and we've managed to pivot really quickly, restructure financially, and build on our partnerships that we have around the world to look for funds together from various donors, and including foundations, and we've worked also with the private sector. So we've got some private sector clients with some things going on. So our firm will definitely survive. I think we'll thrive in the future. And we want to make sure that all of the important NGOs and for-profit small businesses around the world that have been affected by this USAID crisis are also able to survive and thrive. Thank you. Back to you, Mary Pat.
Thank you, Joe. And last but not least, Ina Vandervat from Universal One will talk about the mental health support under the RRP.
Good day, everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Universal.One. Our role in this partnership is the mental health support for the affected employees of these organizations. So maybe to start off with, just a little bit about our company structure. So the holding group is Universal Healthcare, which has more than 80 years of combined experience in health and wellness expertise. And it has multiple subsidiaries. The two that is applicable in this project will be Universal Corporate Wellness. I'm also the managing director of Universal Corporate Wellness, and myself, I have more than 20 years of experience in employee wellness management. So the good thing of corporate wellness is that we have the mental experts and the wellness experts, so they will render specifically the counseling services to the affected employees. On the other side, you see Universal.One. That is another subsidiary of the Universal Healthcare Group. And this subsidiary has got operations in multiple African countries as well as the United States. And we will use that subsidiary as our mental health platform. So that's our technology provider, and we built the technology in Silicon Valley. There's many stories that I can tell in terms of our experience and success stories in mental health, but I would like to highlight COVID, since that is so familiar to all of you. We know that what happened with COVID was that suddenly everyone had to work from home, and that went with a lot of challenges for employees. I think first there was the fear of their life, fear of health, fear of tomorrow. Later, we know that loneliness kicked in, and all those things impacted productivity and the mental well-being. And as the economy was impacted, we also know that some organizations, many organizations actually had to go through restructuring. So what happened during that time was that multiple clients, including multinational clients, contracted us and said, can you please help our employees? Can you please support them? They are struggling, our productivity is going down, and that obviously impacts the performance of the company. So we contracted with these multinationals and we helped their employees, taking their virtual hands and help them through this to navigate through the changes, through the trauma, the grief, the restructuring, so that they can actually be productive again and do what they have been appointed to do. On the next slide, you will see what our services actually we've got 3 combined services. So Mary Pat, we can go to the next slide. I can start talking about that. So we've got the counseling services, we've got the U-Wellness mobile application, as well as the U-Consult. So basically, these 3 services give access to service users anytime, anywhere in the world, directly to mental health experts. On the left, you will see the wellness application. That will allow service users to do a mood checker, to complete mental health assessments, financial wellness assessments. And the great thing is that they get real-time feedback based on their answers. There's also something that we call My Safe Space. That is something that if an employee feel that they're at the end of the line, they don't have hope, maybe they want, consider suicide, that they can reach out immediately. And once they hit that link, it will ring in our call center and we can support them. There's also real-time dashboards. So for the employee, they can track their progress. And for organizations, they can actually monitor how their employee or their workforce, how they are doing. This is aggregated data, so it's no confidential information. It's just aggregated anonymous information for the employer. Secondly, we do the 24/7 counseling every day of the year. It's done by registered counseling professionals, and we can do that telephonically and virtually. Virtual links to the third one then, that is our U-Consult platform, which is a telehealth cloud platform. That is important because that allows us to deploy in any country. Wherever the need is, there we can deploy. The telehealth platform is something that employees can access if they have a connected device, anywhere, anytime. It will allow them to make an online booking, so they can, for example, book themselves with the psychologist. On the other side, the psychologist can accept the booking, and then the counseling can happen on a secure and safe platform. And last but not least, it allows them also to fill in patient history. So if a patient or an employee comes back in a week or a month from now, they can continue with the counseling process and don't have to start from scratch as if they have no history. These 3 things, the U-Wellness application, mobile app, the counseling, as well as the U-Consult platform, allows us to be accessible to employees whenever they need us to support them on their mental health journey. Thanks, Mary Pat.
Thank you, Ina. So to close the webinar, I'd like to ask Joe to talk a little bit about why work with us. Joe?
Thank you. Yes. So we'd be very happy to work with you to help these organizations recover and ensure that they're continuing to do their important services for foundations and for other donors, and especially for the people that they serve. We begin with diagnostics to determine what support each of the implementing partners need. That would then lead to helping them deal with the challenges with whether they're on financial management, turnaround strategy, operations, or anything else, including fundraising, and ensure that they survive, recover, and then thrive as organizations. We are able to price these low. We all feel very committed to this work, and putting aside some of our other work to do this. So we'll price these as low as we can, these services, and we can easily talk with you about what how that might work. And again, we have priced these services and designed them in a way that things can be done quickly, efficiently, and at minimum cost. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mary Pat.
Sorry. Thank you, Joe. So to close, we really would like to have a chance to talk to the people on this call. Your funding would help prevent closures and sustain programs for NGOs and small businesses around the world. If you found this webinar interesting, please contact us at this telephone number and email. Thank you very much. Goodbye.